Good morning. Hi, so today our group is going to be presenting about hypothesis testing for music and concentration.
So we have a total of 2 objectives. The first objective is we have to establish if respondents would react positively towards the different genres of music and if that would have an effect on their concentration level. The second objective is we would like to establish if the different demographics of our respondents, including their age group or their year, their gender, and their program, will have an effect on how effective the music was on improving their concentration level.
We have a total of 7 different questions which we will explore. The questions are up here on the screen, but we will go through them all individually one by one. All of them correspond to a certain test that we've done in class as well. So let's start with the first question. All right, so for the first question, it's a one-sample t-test where we will be comparing one variable or one scale variable to a mean. As you may recall, in our previous study, we collected the data of how effective our respondents thought that music was for their concentration task. So for this question, as it was on a scale of 1 to 5, we hypothesized that people would generally have a mean that would be greater than 3. So of course, step 1, you would have to prove a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. Our null hypothesis was that the average response would be less than or equal to 3. All alternative hypothesis was that the general response would be greater than 3. So step 2 was to establish our alpha level, which is 0.05 or the confidence interval of 95%. This is constant throughout all of our different hypotheses. Next, we established step 3, which is the different test, which of course we said one sample t-test, and it's a one-tailed test seeing as we were only looking on one side of the graph. So for step 4, we will set the criteria for rejecting our null hypothesis, which is we would reject H0 if the p-value is less than the alpha level of 0.05. So we input all of this data and then placed it into using the SPSS program. Here we found that the significance level of a two-tailed variable would be 0.000. And seeing as that's not a variable, we decided it to be less than 0.001. And as we are only observing a one-tailed test, it would be less than 0.0005. So we came to our conclusion. As our p-value, which is less than 0.005, is less than our alpha level of 0.05, we reject our null hypothesis. And therefore, we can conclude that the average response to the statement, music can improve concentration, which was conducted after our experiment, is greater than 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So, what is our meaningful conclusion? Our meaningful conclusion is that the general sentiment among our respondents is that music has a positive correlation or a positive impact on concentration. So for our second question, we will be using a dependent t-test. We asked this question to our respondents 2 times. Please rate the statement, music can improve concentration. We asked this question before and after we conducted our study. We wanted to see if there would be a difference in their response. So, of course, we had the null hypothesis stating that before the experiment and after the experiment, the response was less than the mean. And for the alternative hypothesis, we say that before and after the experiment, the response would be greater. Again, alpha level, 0.05. It will be a one-tailed test again. And the premise is still the same, where we reject the p-value if it's less than the alpha level. And for our response, we found that the answer, or the p-value, divided by 2 would be 0.0795. We go to our conclusion, which is, as the p-value is 0.0795, which is less than the alpha level of 0.05, we failed to reject H0. The final conclusion is that people's response before the experiment is statistically less than or equal to the mean number of the response that they gave after the experiment. The meaningful conclusion. The experiment did not increase the respondents' general belief that music has a positive impact on concentration tasks.
For the third hypothesis testing, because we found that classical music had the most positive impact on the concentration level of our respondents, we've decided to focus on this specific genre. So our test here is an independent t-test, and we're trying to find whether or not there's a difference in the average number of actual findings and the students' school program, whether they're from the Thai program or from the international program. And our null hypothesis is that there's no difference, and our alternative hypothesis is that there is a difference. So again, our alpha level is 0.05, and it is going to be a two-tailed test. Again, we're going to reject our H0 when the p-value is less than 0.05. Our significant level here is 0.002, and it is less than 0.05, so we reject H0. Therefore, there is a statistically significant difference in the average number of actual findings for the task with classical music and students from Thai and international program.
Because we found that there is a statistically significant difference in the average number of actual findings from the Thai and international program, we wanted to find what this difference actually is. And so from the SPSS, we found the group statistics, and it shows that the international program has a marginally higher score than the Thai program of 7.45, and the Thai program's mean score is 5.36. Meaningful conclusion. Classical music had a different impact on students of the Thai program and the international program, with further analysis indicating that students from the international program had a marginally greater average of actual findings.
For our fifth hypothesis testing, we're going to use the one-way ANOVA. And our research question here is to test whether or not people from different year groups have a different rating for how much they think music can improve concentration. Our null hypothesis here is that there are no differences, and our alternative hypothesis here states that there is at least one pair of mean that is different, and our alpha level is 0.05. This is going to be a two-tailed test. We will reject H0 when the p-value is less than the alpha level of 0.05. The significant level of the ANOVA test shows 0.645. However, we wanted to see the post hoc test as well. After the post hoc, we can see that none of the pairs of the means are statistically significantly different. The p-value of 0.645 is larger than the alpha level of 0.05. Therefore, we fail to reject H0, hence making this whole hypothesis testing no statistically significant differences in how much our respondents agree with the following statement: music can improve concentration between different year groups. Our meaningful conclusion: the research doesn't allow us to identify a significant difference in belief in the effectiveness of music between different age groups.
For the formulation of our next hypothesis, we're using a chi-square test for association to determine whether there's a relationship between the genre that respondents think would have the most effectiveness on a concentration task and whether they are from the Thai or international program. Our null hypothesis, H0, here is that there is no association between these two variables. And our alternative hypothesis in case of rejection is that there is an association between the genre of music respondents believe have an effectiveness and whether they are from the Thai or international program. We set a standard alpha level of 0.05. The chi-square test for association is a two-tailed test. If the p-value is less than the alpha level of 0.05, we'll reject the hypothesis.
After inputting our values into the SPSS program, the p-value we received was 0.004, which is less than the alpha level of 0.05. Thus, we can reject our null hypothesis and can therefore conclude that there is a statistically significant association between the genres of music selected relating to concentration and their program. According to our cross-tabulation data, you can see that within the total number of respondents who selected no music as their genre of choice, 64.3% were Thai students, which is relatively greater than the international students' proportion of 35.7%. On the other hand, 89.5% of the students who picked chill electronic were from the international program. The remaining 10.5% only were from the Thai program. Our meaningful conclusion is that there is an association between programs and genres selected, with a relatively larger percentage of Thai program respondents associating with no music, and a relatively larger percentage of international program respondents associating with chill electronic.
The next question follows the same principle, but instead of comparing it to the Thai and international program, we use the gender. So the question becomes, is there a correlation between the genre of music that respondents believe is the most effective and their gender, male or female or other? Our null hypothesis for this question will be that there is no association between these two variables. Our alternative hypothesis will be that there is an association between these two variables. So we'll again set a standard alpha level of 0.05. Again, same test, it's also a two-tailed test. And we'll reject the null hypothesis if the p-value is lower than the alpha level of 0.05.
After conducting our cross-analysis with the SPSS program, we found a p-value of 0.223, which is greater than our alpha level of 0.05. Therefore, we failed to reject our null hypothesis. We can then conclude that there is no statistically significant association between the genre of music respondents believe would help them complete concentration tasks most effectively and their gender.
The meaningful conclusion fails to be very meaningful, and we can only conclude that the analysis doesn't allow us to conclude an association between these two variables.
So for our analyses that we've done today, we can draw two meaningful conclusions overarching this whole project. First, there is a generally positive attitude towards music and its impact on concentration. However, this attitude is not necessarily improved after the conducting of our study.
The second conclusion that we can make is that most social and categorical variables, such as our age, gender, and year group, didn't show any correlation with the effectiveness, whether it was perceived or in the actual findings of music on the concentration task. We say most because, as we can see in our previous findings, the program, whether they were from the Thai and international program, tended to show some correlation or relationship with the genre of music that they picked and the effectiveness that music had on their level of concentration.
So what suggestions do we have? For our target audience, we can say that both our studies and analyses did not show that music has a negative impact. So turning on music in studious environments for both students and professors or in libraries should not be discouraged. Secondly, the concentration music CDs are not necessarily the way to go. We explored many different types of genres throughout our studies, and then none of them did not show a negative impact on the level of concentration that people had when conducting different tasks. So it's beneficial for people to try different types of genres of music while they study or while they do concentration tasks to see whichever one fits best for them. Next, for people who are conducting future studies on this topic, we would suggest that ideally you would identify different variables apart from the general demographics, which may have a greater effect on the genres of music that you listen to and your level of concentration to provide more conclusive results. Also, we would suggest, of course, a larger sample, a longer spread of time, as well as many different concentration tasks to be conducted for different genres of music. And that's it. Thank you very much.